call the meeting to order. We'll start with some president's announcements. Again, I want to welcome everybody to your TVA or TVPOA board meeting. We are having some internet difficulties, so we're $5 million. That is not true.
3+ years with our rapid growth and the number of homes that we have under construction now, it's something that we felt that it was critically important that we implement and take our resident ACC volunteers out of that equation.
Are our off-site folks connected? Still having problems. Okay. Yeah, I know we are.
Mr. President, I would just like to reiterate that before, even when we made the change, we have changed this to make this a contract between the ACC or the POA and the homeowner. And with these changes regarding drainage and I&I, we've put teeth into the Blue Book now that we can enforce them.
Absolutely. Okay, so, oh geez, we had Steve for a minute.
There he is.
Steve, we're at the point of voting on the Blue Book changes?
Oh, on the Blue Book changes?
Yes.
I'm good with the Blue Book changes.
Okay, so all in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you, Steve. Is Marty on the phone?
Let me look. He is, but you guys just came back 10 seconds ago. I have not heard a word you said since your opening 2 words. And our property owners have sent me text messages. The YouTube's not functioning either.
Yeah, the problem is that the internet's been up and down. We're having a major issue. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, the meeting will be recorded and it'll be available for viewing. We're trying to correct the internet problems. I'm not sure we're going to get there. We're live at the moment.
Marty's here, and I'm good with the Blue Book changes as well.
Okay, so the motion carries 7-0. Okay, the next agenda item is an update from Winston on COVID operations. I just want to interject. The last couple of weeks have seen dramatic rises in cases in Tennessee. Right now, cases in Tennessee are running 2,000 to 3,000 new ones every day. Loudoun County's at 437. There was over 30 cases that went into the system yesterday. Monroe County's at 2,013, and God help Knoxville, they're at 2,539. So it ain't getting easier, and we're in for a long battle with this. So, Winston.
Mr. President, thank you very much for that. Operationally, on the COVID
Green project, I know you all are very aware of that. This is just another success story from the Kahidi Golf Maintenance. Jordan said that they started building this nursery green when he first arrived at Kahidi and unfortunately failed in several ways. It was hard to keep it alive. There was also contamination and drainage issues. He says, but we have finally figured it out, and it was have proven to be very useful this winter. Again, this is something that we would have normally reported at the beginning, which was Q1. He says, as you know, encroachment is a battle. It's hard to win at Kahidi, but if we continue to fight, we can somewhat keep it under control. He's talking about the estimation on the greens and how they have had to have some repair in certain issues. If you look at what he's got there, he said as an average, he feels like they had lost over 30,000 square foot of putting surface. So that's not good, and that's over average for the past years dating back to 2012. So this winter, these greens are now completely growing in strictly from this new nursery green that they've got going on. He's estimated that to be a savings of about $30,000 in capital just by having that there. Is that me? Sorry. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. Ooh. this, of course, is the bunker project. Everyone is familiar with the bunker project. Have a little update on that. They completed the project the second week of June. The last load of sod was actually installed. If you'll go on to the next slide, just show you what a before and after picture there looks like, where the bunkers were being filled in. That was about a $22,000 savings on maintenance. It's going to be, once this is all said and done, on what they were having to do to repair the sand bunkers all of the time. Most of you that golf know that at Kahidi, of course, there were many, and so this has been a big ongoing project. I have one additional slide for Kahidi I want you all to see. I thought, let's see, nope, there's one more. I'm sorry. If you'll go to the next one. This I thought was very neat. We had a construction site that was located on Kahidi Drive. It began in December and went through Q1 of 2020. They actually dumped 50 truckloads of dirt for us. It was free, just across there near the cart barn. And that's actually the dirt that Jordan used to fill in the bunkers. So there again, the guys have been looking for ways to use what we have in order to save money. And so he just wanted to kind of give a shout out to those property owners as well for donating those truckloads of dirt. Next project, quickly, and I'll get through this so Kevin can talk about his. In the admin department, we still have our ongoing efforts to increase the collections of the delinquent accounts. Q1 and Q2 savings are at $14,900 right now. Also continuing to use TSI for our enhanced collections, for those out-of-state collections, to get the subpoenas out there. The savings on that is at $24,000. And then this email delivery of the customer water and sewer bills, the estimated savings on that is currently at $1,700. So at the admin accounting demo session on the 29th of June, and all the staff that would be using this ticketing system, so any staff that could be in any various department that ever gets.
And where we would begin is this slide here. This would be the webpage that a POA member would go to submit a ticket and begin a ticket. They would go to TVPOAHelpspot.com. The form can also be embedded in our own TVPOA website. Once there, they would click over to the left. It's kind of hard to see, but in the darker box, there's 3 lines. The second line down is submit a request. Once a request has been, once that's been clicked, you go to this page where you put in your name, email address, phone number, and then the issue that you're having. Once the issue has been added to this form, you hit submit and go to the next slide, please. Look much bigger on that computer. Very small, but this is what, yeah, on this slide it shows, this is what the staff member would see. This is the workspace for the staff member. So you see the submitted request from this slide. From this slide, the staff member could also create their own ticket. So if they got a phone call, an email, they can create a ticket in this slide.
It's not green.
You're not on.
Push this in.
Up at
Push
the
it down
top.
in here.
Is that better? One of the things that happened, this internet going out today is a perfect example of things that happen. And with our telephone system being internet protocol, an example that happened was they cut the main line of internet in Vonore one day, and so internet was out for all of Kahidi for the day, which included the golf shop and the pub. Do we have a way, so they could call in to the POA office, I presume, and let you know that was out. But what would have helped is if we could have forwarded those phones from the golf shop and the pub so that people wouldn't just think that nobody was there, that nobody was answering the phone. And so I realize this is a slightly different subject, but at the time I actually talked to Stephen that day, and he was unable to forward those phones without actually having the service at Kahidi to be able to set it up to forward. Is there a workaround for that we can do stuff like that?
There is, and one of the things we do, for example, if that happened, somebody get on their cell phone, call us, we can take out a device that's portable that can connect those phones to cellular towers. So it just
Okay.
a matter of time it takes for us to try it out and connect it.
Thanks, Kevin. So, Beth, are we connected at all?
Yeah, internet's up, it says.
Do, yeah, I'm on, okay. Okay, is there a chance we'll get back up?
You're up now.
So no, the answer is no. Okay. We're gonna come back to you after we do this, because he's gotta get back.
I would suggest that you do all of our advisory committees, because
Fine.
they've been here and we're on about, so I would hate to see Jerry sit back there and listen to Tugaloo for 20 minutes.
But he might be interested.
Well, he can come sit over here 6 feet from me if he
So,
is.
so Jerry, welcome. You know,
Welcome the opportunity to give an update to the board. Okay. The items I want to discuss would be on that, the ISO report, COVID-19 update as it refers to the county and the fire department, how we're handling it, an update on the Knox box, and our latest is our strategic plan is the SWOT analysis. Okay. So, to date, through the month of June, we had 426 calls total. 320 of them were EMS, 106 were other, or fire and emergency type calls. So it's running a little bit down from last year as far as the percentages. But if you click the next slide, okay, if you would click the next slide. Okay, it's up 14%, and if you look out and project out to the future, we're looking at 900 calls for this year. Next, please. This is just a snapshot of our ISO audit that was just completed. There were 4 components that the ISO organization looks at. Communication system is worth 10 points. The fire department itself is worth 50 points. The water supply system is worth 40 points. And then there's a 5.5 bonus points that called community risk reduction. And so it's uses a 100-point scale with a potential of 105.5. So we were notified on July 29th that, go ahead, put the next slide, that we were 4 out of a 4, we received a 4. The lower the number, the better the fire department. We're about in the 78%, that's where the number 4 fire departments are across the whole ISO organization. There's about 79,000 fire departments that are being evaluated by the ISO organization. So effective October 1st, for 5 years, we will be at 4.0, and it's the same as we were next year. Yes, sir.
You might want to tell them why this is important to them.
The rating here has an impact on your insurance rating. A lot of the insurance companies use this information to establish your insurance rate or your insurance premiums for your homes. So if you go to the next slide, this is our evaluation. We got a 60.34 out of 105.5. And you can see the communication system, that's basically the 911 center over in Loudon. We had a 9.5 out of a 10, so Loudon is the rated one of the best in the state. For the fire department, we got 22 out of 50. So it gives us a focus on what we can do for the next 5 years as far as how to
Hey, Jerry, I have a question, just as to help me understand. If you go down to fire department, credit for deployment analysis, not just randomly pick that.
That is our, what we call pre-plans. We have all the major buildings in Telco Village identified. We have detailed documents on first engine goes here, second engine goes here. This is where all of the sprinkler systems are, this is where the remote alarms are for controlling that. We have all the major buildings. What they're suggesting to us is go to the village square. We don't have that plan yet. It's in our long-range plan, but we don't have it done yet. Improve upon that and then start looking at the larger residential buildings. So that's
Got
our
it.
deployment analysis.
That is a lot of work then.
Yes.
That is exponentially more. And I guess that's why that's the big difference between the 322 and the 10. Okay, got it. Thank you.
We just completed a senior facility in the neighborhood on Jupiter Drive. And that one was 25 pages long. We brought in all the fire chiefs from the other fire departments in Loudoun County, sat down with them, and we had that, and that, along with our automatic mutual aid agreement, was a major factor for getting us good points in that area.
Right, good.
Chief,
Yes.
can you address because we are an all-volunteer fire department, can you address the one on credit for company personnel?
Company personnel being trained is with a volunteer department to be a firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and that's 164 hours of training to be a firefighter 1, and 164 hours to be a firefighter 2. And for volunteers in the 50s and 60-year-olds,
Hard to
we
get.
don't have too many people to do that. So that's where the younger,
Is-
we go outside of,
What is Bruce?
we have
He's an old dog, no new tricks.
He's not a 1 or 2.
We have what we call an introduction to firefighting. When they join the department, it's a 16-hour course. We've just implemented a 64-hour course that will be planned. We're working with the county departments to do that. And we have one gentleman right now working through the 160-hour course in the department. So we're slowly getting there, but with our demographics and our ability to recruit, they have to live within Telco Village in Loudoun County. So our pool of people to really become trained personnel.
So it's 100, it just hit me, 160 hours is 4 40-hour weeks.
Yes. And then you
Wow,
have to go
for
through-
retirees.
Then you have to go through a 2-day burn building. They physically have a multiple-story building and they light a fire and let them put a fire.
Okay.
So it's with air packs and hose, so it's challenging. Okay? Next slide. And then I just gave a handout to everyone.
Yeah.
And that, this will summarize that, but
I didn't get no.
we've reported the, if I can, let's see if I can pull up the. As reported earlier, for the state, yesterday was 81,944 cases reported yesterday alone. For 1,237,000 for the state, yes, as of yesterday. Loudoun County yesterday was 437 cases positive. Knox County was 2,500, and Monroe County was 213. That's published information. It's out on the Tennessee Department of Health website every day. It comes out at 3 o'clock. What I look at is a snapshot, and the information, I'll read you, you have the handout, but I'll read it out. For the month of July, as of yesterday, we had 176 cases, positive cases in Loudoun County.
Is that open cases?
That's open cases, positive open cases in the state of Tennessee, in Loudoun County.
Are any of those,
Yesterday,
are a percent of those recovered, or is that unrecovered?
recovered for Loudoun County is 283, so it's about 50%. Through the month, through 21 days in July, we've had 2 deaths in Loudoun County. So if you look that line across, Monroe County has had 81 cases reported so far in 21 days. 14-day average for Loudoun County was 10. So our 14-day average number is going up. It's not going down. Fire chiefs, we meet every Wednesday on a conference call with the health department, the school board, the police department, and we share. Okay, we share information, what's going on around the county, and the frustration is there that the mayor is not willing to go with the mask. All of the organizations are saying we need to go to the mask, make it mandatory, but it's not there. But we're strongly recommending it to go. So, any questions?
Well, and the governor's left it up to the county mayors.
Yes. And yes, it's been, I had a phone call or two asking about confirming cases in Tellico Village. HIPAA will not allow anybody to tell us what we have in Tellico Village. I talked to the health director this morning and asked her, I confronted her saying, I heard that you confirmed that there were 2 cases in Tellico Village. She says, yes, I did. Back in April, we knew of 2 confirmed cases in Tellico Village. That statement was taken out of context. So I says, thank you very much. That answers my question. It was rumored last week to us that there may be a staff member at the neighborhood that was positive. We had a call there on Monday, and we were informed by the director, 2 different room numbers are positive cases at the neighborhood. So yesterday I went down with the Deputy Chief Papke on EMS side, and we met with the director, and she said, what are you here for? We said, we'd like to see if you could confirm information. She says, I think you know HIPAA, we know HIPAA. I can confirm, yes, we have 2 cases. The entire staff and all of the residents have been tested. And we ask if they're going through the health department. She says for their testing, she says, no, our service turns them around in 24 to 36 hours. The health department is 8 to 15 days. We had a call on June 28th at Poplar Springs for a call. The next day, we were notified that it was a positive. We didn't know. The next day, they were told, the person was told it was positive. 10 days later, we were told. So we missed the whole window of that. So we got everybody tested that was on that call. So there's frustrations all around.
Can we kick Bruce out of that board meeting?
Might add that it took 10 days for my report to come back, and it took 14 days for Brenda's to come back.
Yeah, so the frustration's out there as far as turnaround. Next slide. So the fire department is still operating at what we call TEMSCON 1, which means there's 1 vehicle in service and 2 people respond to all calls. Unless it is a heart attack or a CPR in progress, we'll go to a maximum of 7. We had 6 calls since we went into TEMSCON, which was back in late March, that we had back-on-back calls. So when we were out on a call, we had another call come in. What we did is somebody went back, got the second vehicle, responded to the call, and we deployed people. So we haven't been okay. So next slide. So this is just our current roster. We're at 29. Joe Beal, he's highlighted because he retired from the department last year, and I sucked him back in to help us out during COVID. His license expires in the end of July, and I asked him, I says, I'll buy you dinner if you would like to re-up, and he said no. But Maureen's talking to him and trying to get him to come back, but I don't think so. And the other one is down there is Jeff Wells. I have him highlighted. He's a new member of the department, came right on board and took his basic EMR class, and then all of a sudden he liked it so much, he went back and he has taken his EMTA or EMTB class, and he'll take his exam next week to become an AEMT. Next slide. Just an update on the Knox box. The photo up on the top left is just if you're out in the parking lot near the POA building driving up towards the community church, where the Knox box is located, the slide right below it, you'll see between the light fixture and the downspout is a little square box. That's where the Knox box is located at the community church. The one on the photo to the left is at the Baptist church. Those little boxes cost about $350. And then the owner of the building property will put whatever keys they feel necessary for the fire department to have in that box. And the key over on the left is in our engine 123. And that little box costs $3,500. It's a safe, basically, and it's electronic. And what we have is that key can only come out if you enter last four digits of your social security number, and it's in the system. It will let you take that key out. You can take that key out and go over to any of the boxes, the structures in the village, and open that lock box, Knox box, and then you'll get the keys to that residence. To close it back up, you have to do the same way, put the key back in, put the keys in, put that key in, unlock, lock it back up, and then go back and put it back in the engine. And then if it doesn't go back in the engine, it goes, we know who has that key. So the security is there. We were to have we're going to show Jeff the installation down at the Premier facility. And then Jeff went out on quarantine. So we have not made connections with Jeff to walk through that, but he is interested in working and moving forward with the POA based on our one call that we had over at the Wellness Center that we stood there for about 40 minutes waiting for somebody to get a key.
Wow.
Any questions?
Just a question. For residents here that are gone parts of the year, like 4 months out of the year, have we explored the possibility of doing knock boxes for residents?
What we wanted to do is get a good base here, and then we're going to broadcast it through our newsletter saying this, you might want to consider this for your residents.
Keep us from having to break a door down.
Right. Next slide. And then the fire department is going through a strategic planning session, and we're considering a very good raw data analysis so far. We had participation from the fire department members, board of directors. I sent a couple to the POA and got some input there. Fundraisers and what I called key stakeholders were the POA people. The raw data came back. It was honest, critical, informative, and useful. Next slide. Got a lot of information. We were looking for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There was no editing or grammar checks or spell checks done, so it was a lot of duplication of the information. Next slide. We came up with 84 weaknesses, 95 opportunities, and 91 threats. And that's what we call the raw data. Next slide. So it's 271 items in total that we worked through, and we've got 124 that cleared through the funnel, and 61 of those items received at least one vote. A couple items received 6 and 7 votes. And so we moved into phase 3 of the SWOT analysis, and we're working with a gentleman from Loudoun County who lives in Rarity Bay, he is retired and has done strategic plannings for years, and he offered to do it for us. So we just met yesterday for 3.5 hours, and we know where we're going. So we know what our next steps are going to be. Next. Go ahead. You can click through on that. That's going to be quick. So our objectives, they said it will most likely be 7, and they have to be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. Next slide. And we'll focus most likely on people, finance, equipment, technology, and community. Okay? And then the hardest thing that came out yesterday is that our facilitator is trying to get us up here and everybody in the department wants to be down here. So the challenge is
That
out
never
there.
happens to the board.
Next slide. Just a quick update on the response time due to COVID. In the past, we have prided ourselves that we were running 4.3 minutes from the time a dispatch was received and we were toned out and the first person was at the resident's house was 4.3 minutes. Now that we're in TEMSCON and with the COVID-19, our time has jumped up a little bit. We're at 5.1 minutes through the first 350 calls of the year. And as I said, we had, during those calls, we had 6 calls occurred on top of one another. So we're getting there and we're working on it. So next slide. And then the last thing I'll just give an update to is the Public Service Advisory Committee asked for an information on if the fire department's thoughts of Chattooga Road being extended. So I did some research on that, and I sent the letter to Bruce and to Ed
Hofer,
Hofer,
PSAC chair.
the P, and here is the data as far as number of calls in the area and what would be the recommendation position of the fire department. And based on the meeting with the fire chiefs in the area and working through the plan for if there were a major fire at the Premier facility, we would strongly support it. Because if you lay a hose line down the road, you're blocking the road. So, and you're going to need a water supply over there. The 8-inch main that feeds that area over there comes off of the same 12-inch main that goes up 444. So we're going to have to most likely go a tanker operation, and you'll need to go to a different hydrant to do that. So you're going to need tankers running around in a circle. So getting a circle would be the best way to do it. So, any questions?
Any questions for Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate
thank
it. Okay.
See how he did that, guys? Watch this. He is good at that.
So, Bob,
Massive amounts of juice on it.
you're up. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. My name is Bob Milligan. My wife and I moved here from southeast Michigan in 2013, and I've been the chairman of the Dock Captains Committee. Oh. Hello? Yeah. That's better.
Pull it closer.
Did everybody get my first?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, that's good. The Dock Captains Committee was formed approximately 20 years ago to liaison between the TVPOA Public Works Department and the over 600 dock lessees. Our purpose was to help the Public Works Department identify and prioritize maintenance and repairs to our marinas. In April 2020, the Tellico Village Board of Directors voted to transform the Dock Captains Committee into the Marine Advisory Committee. The committee is comprised of the 6 directors of the Docks Committee and 1 member at large. We also continue to be dock captains as well. In June 2020, we, the Marine Advisory Committee, met with the PSAC to confirm that our purpose is to work in unison with them and provide additional input where the marina projects were concerned. The PSAC welcomed us and said they're looking forward to working with us. The Marina Advisory Committee is working with homeowners and the Public Works Department to find solutions to the overcrowding marina parking, which occurs a couple times a year. This is mostly in the Thanassie Basin where the parking lots are landlocked. We've been working with the Public Works Department to find temporary emergency parking during these overload periods. John Fern has developed a status update PowerPoint presentation of the current boating environment in Tellico Village and what possible direction we can take in the near future. I present to you Mr. John Fern. Now, what do I have to do?
Squirt it heavy.
Do I have to squirt this or is it short
Yeah,
off?
all right.
Just squirt everything.
I can't take it anymore.
There you go.
That's the one.
All right. And I only inhaled,
with him.
so.
Yeah, we can tell.
Can I stand and move?
Yes.
Thank you, Bob. My name is John Fern. I've been a property owner for 12 years, been a resident for 7, been on dock captains for 6. And what I'm going to do now is to sort of give you a little update on, the status of our common dock facility. Next slide, please.
Didn't know tonsillectomy went with this meeting, did you?
It's almost like a COVID test, isn't it? But anyway, I thought I should start off with, hey, we're a lakeside community. We're trying to fulfill the expectations of our property owners and what's been the focus of our marketing. And Beth, my apologies here for distilling it just to a few words, but we're basically a lake, golf, and recreational lifestyle living community. And we also talk very much about our affordability. And I want you to keep those thoughts in mind as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please. This is an overview of our dock facilities, 644 boat slips. That is in Tugaloo, the yacht club here, Tanasi, and in Kahiti. We got 51 PWC slips or ramps and 64 kayak storage racks. We do have permits for additional slips. When the plan was put together in 1994 between Cooper Communities and the TVA, they drew out envelopes of where we could put in dock facilities, and it equates to about 80 additional slips we could put in the Tanasi Basin and about 64 slips in Kahiti. These aren't exact numbers. It depends upon the configuration of the boat slips as to how wide and how long they are is exactly the numbers we can put in. But another little number I want you to think about is for every 6 homes on internal lots here in the village, 1 boat slip is leased. So if we've got roughly something between 1,500 and 2,000 vacant lots that are all internal lots remaining in the village plot, that's, divide that by 6. And, you're going to be talking something in the region of, we're going to need something like 300 slips eventually to satisfy the needs of the community. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Recently, I went out to the community on the beloved next door and asked a couple of questions, and it was basically about, hey, we've got a wait list for boat slips. What are you guys doing? So next slide, please. The first question, with the recent restricted numbers of available boat slips, have you delayed purchasing a boat or found other accommodation for your boat? 23 people said they've delayed purchasing a boat. 10 have made other arrangements. Nobody detailed. Didn't ask them what their other arrangements are, but the sort of other arrangements people have made is they've leased slips in the Cooper docks. There are 1 or 2, but I think that's just about full now. They might trailer their boats. They might go to another marina, or they might even get with somebody who's got lakefront property and no boat and come to some agreement with using their dock. But 23 people delayed the purchase of their boat. That means, you know, with that and the 10 people making other arrangements, that's over $2,200 a month of lost potential revenue that we're facing. And of course, also 23 people have delayed their dream, should we say. Next slide, please. The second question we asked is, right, well, looking into 2021, if we had slips available, would you be likely to lease a slip? And 60 said yes, we would be likely to lease, to be new lessees. This was specifically for new lessees, not people like me that's already got a lease. And then others would make the arrangement. Now that's 60 lessees. That generates over $4,000 a month in revenue. Again, just keep that in your mind. Next slide, please. This is a very brief review of the docks finances. This is based on the budget. Now, we are tracking very close to budget for revenue. So you're talking about $550,000 worth of revenue that's generated. The most significant variable cost element for the docks is maintenance. And it's budgeted this year at $128,000. Knowing Mr. Gagley, he is going to stick to that. But actually, 2019, 2018, it was about $128,000. 2016, 2017, it was about $105,000 a year each on maintenance. So the net income, positive of over $220,000. This, I think, is secure and looks to be secure ongoing, because the maintenance that's been carried out in recent years has been quite significant and substantial. We've replaced all the electric stands in the yacht basin and in Tugaloo. We've replaced about 75 to 80% of the anchors and cables on the docks in the yacht club and on End Dock in Tanasi. We've replaced them with stainless steel, whereas the previous ones were just mild steel cables. So I think going forward, you know, the maintenance figure of 128,000 is a reasonable figure to hold to. So as you can see, we have significant net income in relation to the revenue that we pull in. And from that point of view, there is no justification to increase the lease rates because, you know, we're looking after our costs. Now, looking further down, our current reserves, 172,000 at the end of June. And just a little note there that previously in 2019, you see the percentages there for reserve allocation made about $59,000 a year. Last year, you all voted to increase that allotment. Thank you for that. And, you know, we're now accruing about $156,000 a year towards our reserves. Next slide, please. Appreciate the input of Jessica Johnson in accounting, and for Beth and for Holly. Help me with some of the data here, but you can see here plotted is home sales over the last 10 years, new home builds, and leases terminated, that's boat slip leases terminated over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, the dock captains weren't quite so good at recording all the vacancies, but I tried to backtrack as much as I could, and you can see how the vacancies in the slips have declined quite dramatically over the last 5 years. Currently, as of Monday, we had 27 on the wait list. 27 people looking for a wait list. Now, we're looking for a boat slip. As you look into, how things are trending through 2020, we can see that the new home builds are still going gangbusters. What you had about 2022 people apply for new permits even in July. Home sales are also proceeding. COVID didn't seem to have a dramatic effect yet on those things. So we can continue to see that the demand for boat slips will continue to grow. Next slide, please. I wrote this slide a couple of weeks ago, and it had 22 on the wait list. As I say, now it's 27. So what are the options? What could we do about this wait list? We could maintain the status quo. Say, hey, leave the number of boat slips at 644. And you'll just have to wait a while until people exit. That will disappoint, to say the least, our new villagers and new potential boaters. One option, you could say, hey, supply and demand, increase the lease fee to drive out price-sensitive lessees. Yes, we could do that. What would be the effect of that? I put it to you that the existing boaters, and that's 600 resident or 600 lessees plus, would be decidedly disappointed. And I was going to use another word, but Bob Milligan suggested I didn't use it. But they would be decidedly disappointed if we put up the fees and just earned more net income just to drive out people. These are the ones, you're making space at the expense of your existing and loyal customers. People have suggested to me that you incentivize low-use boaters to leave the market. Perhaps say to them, oh, we'll forgive you or we'll rebate you your lease for the year if you get your boat out and open it up for somebody else. I'd put it to you that the logistics of that would be extremely complex. One is because these people won't necessarily be able to sell their boat straight away. And since most of us don't have trailers, you're going to have to find a place to store those boats anyway. I'm not sure that is a nice idea, but I'm not sure that is practical. You could encourage boat sharing. Yes, in actual fact, on Nextdoor, there's a special group of people getting together to try and connect each other to talk about boat sharing. I've looked at that group, and quite a lot of them are actually new to boating here. So quite a lot of these potential boat sharing people would actually be new potential lessees. Another alternative that's been suggested is a boat club, where a boat club is formed, like you got the dog park, separate entity. People pay $2,000 or $3,000 to belong to that boat club. That money funds, as an initiation fee, that money supplies the capital to actually purchase boats that then people can use. That might be something for entrepreneurial people property owners to do. We've talked about that within our group, and we feel that this is something that the POA would not want to take on board as a business because of several things. One, there is some risk in putting it together. There will be a demand for managing it, and there would also perhaps be some sensitivity about, taking our docks, our community docks, into a sort of the commercial category as opposed to private marinas as they are now. That might question that status. Our recommendation is to build another dock in Tanasi. That's our recommendation as to how to deal with the wait list. Next slide, please. If you look at the wait list, 27, that certainly meets the criteria of contingent or below the line to trigger some investment. Location, do we put it in Kahiti or Tanasi? Our recommendation is Tanasi because the majority of people that are wanting it are Loudoun County-based property owners. Currently, even though the Kahiti dock is full, about 8 or 9 of the lessees there are Loudoun County residents and would want to transfer their boats back here. That's our feeling there. Funding would, of course, be out of our reserves as they are accumulating. But the big issue, I think, is parking. Next slide, please. Just to orient you here, we would be putting a boat slip in between N dock, which is the outer dock closest to the main channel, and Q dock. Next slide, please. Give you some idea of the costing. We're talking in terms of a 34-slip dock, 11 feet by 24 feet configuration, double slip wells, just the same as what we've got in Tanasi right now. Cost, these are costs given to me by Mr. Gagley, $206,000 for the first dock, P dock. As you know, and I've been saying that as you build and as new residents come into the village, we can project that down the line, in a couple of years' time, we're going to be needing yet another dock here in Tanasi. And in order to do that, we'd have to move N dock. And then the second dock would be pretty much the same cost as the first dock. Just to, again, point out that if you lease those 34 slips, that's another nearly $28,000 worth of revenue. That brings in over $8,000 worth of reserve allocation based on the reserve allocation rate at the moment. Next slide, please. Now to the parking issue. This slide was produced before Bob met with Public Works and representatives out of the townhome community. But the big black lodge in the bottom left-hand corner, that actually represents the 2 new homes that were built in that corner. So you don't think that, oh, we've got a big open space there. No, there are homes there. We can't extend the parking lot there. But option A, they're talking about just regrading, redirecting one of the riprap culverts there and could probably, adjacent to Amal Place there, get space for another probably 10 cars. B was not considered feasible. That's up against the graveyard there. But if you go a little bit below B, I was going to use a terrible pun, but no way.
No, don't.
Yeah, don't.
Just drop a little bit below B. You can see there are some parking spots there. There is a space between, I'd like to point it out, but anyway, with a little bit of tree trimming, we could perhaps fill in another 10 spots there. Tree trimming is something that is sensitive, and we have agreed that with the townhome people that if this is going to be an option, they're going to be engaged with us there as we talk to what needs to be done. We're just not going to go and do it. But that understanding is firmly understood between Public Works, ourselves, and the townhome people. So that would potentially give us another 10 spots. At the moment, you've got 30 parking spaces. July 4th was probably one of the busiest days on the lake this year. And a number of people have reported back to us that actually the parking lot didn't overflow. There were 1 or 2 spaces left during the day. We had taken the initiative of communicating with all the lessees on the Tanasi Harbor docks there. Hey, carpool. If you've got friends coming out on your boat, don't all meet down at the dock. Meet somewhere else and go down in one car. Or drop the skipper off at the dock, and the skipper can then take the boat around to Poplar Springs Ramp or the yacht club and take the rest of the crew on board. You know, be considerate. Don't hog up all the parking spaces. Head with Public Works to start to build together a formal proposal for a new dock in Tanasi. We would like to move ahead as quickly as possible so that we can take care of this wait list as quickly as possible. We would like to do it, if possible, even start this year. The other thing we would also, going back to the finances, where you can see that our revenue and our net income, the proportion there, the control that we have on our maintenance costs, that you consider increasing the allocation again to reserves, probably to something in the region of about 40% of net of revenue to go to a reserve allocation. That is our request. So I thank you for your time, and I wait for questions.
Any questions for John?
We have a question online.
Okay.
This is from Cat Purvis. He said there was a below the line on the budget for additional docks. What is the status of that expenditure?
That line was pushed below the line and I think Cap was there when we were discussing.
He was.
This was all laid out with the graphs that he showed, the justification and everything for that 32-34 slip in Tanasi was being laid out in the budget until the wave attenuator crashed. Meant that we needed to come up with that $220,000.
Whether you call it a social club, or whether you call it a park, or whatever, I'm just saying that
The
we
docks are
need,
just an asset.
they're an
They should
asset
be
and they
fully
should
loaded
get
with
their,
the cost.
That's
should get their
correct.
proper cost.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is, as an asset, it should be fully loaded with its costs.
Exactly.
And as an example, before you speak, because I don't know what you're going to say, but it's the same thing that we went through with allocating pro shop space
Exactly.
to the clubhouses
When we built
because
that,
it
right.
was 50-50.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it was only 30-70. But we reallocated those when we put TOQA in across all clubhouses. And it's the same thing here. It's just put the cost where it belongs. But at the same time, I'm going to stand on your side because you showed 5-1 parking lot 2. And if you give them all of the yacht club parking lots, you're out of business.
Well, it wouldn't be the whole parking lot.
Right, and I'm
You
just,
know,
I'm just
be the ones that
standing
service
up
the
for
docks.
John here because I'm his liaison.
So
Mr.
there's
President.
nothing wrong with them putting together a project to come forward in the budget.
No,
No,
it should.
not a thing.
And that's probably
that's
what
called
we
the
should do at
budget-
this
that's
point.
called the budget
I mean, we're going to be
process.
kicking off the budget discussions within a month.
Absolutely. We need to call on John. He's been so patient.
Yeah. To my understanding, and Parker, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that we do cover the cost of maintenance for our portion, I'll call it our portion of the yacht club parking lot. We do cover the cost of the Tanasi Basin parking lot. And we cover the 50% of the cost of,
So I otherwise I missed lunch and dinner. But I came home without eating.
That's right.
So
Okay.
nice to see you.
Well, safe travels. Good seeing you again. Tell Lee we said hi.
Yeah, he's good. He had that.
Go ahead.
right. That we cover the cost, the maintenance cost
There
of the
you go.
parking lot here in the
Happy
yacht club.
fun.
The Tanasi Harbor parking lot, 50% of the
Parker, is
Tugaloo.
that true?
All right. Take care.
Okay. So basically what we need to do is put together the project parameters. You know, in the process of doing the budget, we'll fully load it with the costs.
Right.
And then we'll make a decision.
Now he's going to run out and call me Mr. White again. He does that when he gets upset with me.
Are there any other questions for John?
I do have a comment.
Okay.
This group, and again, it has to do with the purchase price and depreciation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this group now and historically have managed these docks to the point that they are generating revenue.
Yeah, I understand that.
For the first time, as my understanding, is that we replaced Wave Runner floats this year, and one of the Marine Advisory Committee went out and found a place to sell them. So I think we made $4,500 on something that we used to just throw away.
Correct.
Okay, so anyway, these guys are great stewards of this asset. And
I don't dispute that.
and I do want to commend them
Yeah.
publicly for what they've done in the past and today. Thank
Okay.
you both.
So I guess the answer to your question is you should start working with Jeff Gagley on putting together that project to come forward to the board during the budget conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Squirted head
Now-
there.
Beth, I understand we've got the connection back?
It's my
Tugaloo.
turn then. It's my turn. Let me get situated here.
My computer's showing you don't.
It's kind of go.
I need to pick that up.
So Shannon, if you get me queued up, I'll yell next, okay? Yeah, that's the first one right there. Thank you. All right. So when I need a slide changed, I'll just yell next. What a team. All right. So I was, I guess it was about a week ago, Rick, you called me and said we need to discuss Tugaloo and would you please do this?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, I
It
get,
fell into the category of better you than me.
I get buzzards and dogs and tugaloos. Yeah, Mikey will eat anything, right? Yeah, okay. So before I begin covering the issues of Tugaloo, allow me to clarify background information. First, during this presentation, I will refer to Nextdoor. The Property Owners Association has no affiliation to Nextdoor. The POA does not own, edit, delete, or use Nextdoor as an official communication tool. Second, as I've said before in these board meetings, particularly this year, I am a fan of Nextdoor. I use Nextdoor as a community opinion survey as well as an indicator of the property owner's understanding of the issues being discussed. But I do have concerns regarding Nextdoor. I find many of the posts very frustrating in that opinions being discussed have been factually reviewed in the Telegram and is posted on the POA website. Signing up for your website is a fast, easy, and will provide up-to-date as well as historical and verifiable information regarding your community. There is a wealth of information available that is only a mouse click away. Next. The report will cover the following. What is Tugaloo? Concerns regarding Tugaloo, possible solutions regarding those concerns, implementation of solutions and recommendations. Next, please. What is Tugaloo? And a lot of this, what I'm going to talk about today, as I'm noticing on Nextdoor, there are new people to Tellico Village that'll say, what is Tugaloo? Where is Tugaloo? I'm going to cover it all today. So for those that understand, bear with me. I'm speaking to everybody. So what is Tugaloo? Tugaloo is primarily a recreation area within Tellico Village named after the street, Tugaloo Lane, that intersects with State Route 444 or Tellico Parkway. The majority of property making up Tugaloo is below a water level line commonly referred to as the 820 line, and this line is designated by the TVA that delineates TVA and adjoining properties. The TVA has granted us, Tellico Village property owners, permission to use this property. We, Tellico Village property owners, constructed and maintain all physical infrastructure located at Tugaloo with one exception, Rover Run Dog Park, which I will review later in the presentation. Tugaloo provides access to parking, boat slips, a pavilion, a beach, kayak, paddleboard storage, restrooms, and again, Rover Run Dog Park. We, the property owners of Tellico Village, paid for and maintain the street and all infrastructure at Tugaloo apart from Rover Run Dog Park. Next, concerns. Okay. The concerns regarding Tugaloo, as described on Nextdoor and in letters and emails and phone calls and personal contact, regard outsiders or non-property owners using Tugaloo Beach Pavilion and restrooms, those outsiders, non-property owners fishing along the banks and from the dock walkways. The concerns involve behavior, leaving trash, smoking, profanity, loudness, disruptive behavior, and clear-cutting trees within Tugaloo, as well as clear-cutting trees along Tellico Parkway at Tugaloo. Next, please. Possible solutions to the concerns is add security policing, which would eliminate outsiders, enforce trash pickup, control profanity, control smoking, loudness, disruptive behavior, and eliminate fishing from docks. Next, please. We could install a security gate, which would eliminate outsiders and eliminate fishing from the docks, but would not change the behavior of trash, profanity, smoking, loudness, or disruptive behavior. Next, please. And third, parking expansion. This is a problem that we have today at the Tanasi Clubhouse that is being used by golfers, restaurant, boaters, and people playing cards and games. The same problem that we have at Tanasi Basin Docks that John referred to, at Chota, the Yacht Club, which shares parking with restaurant meetings and docks. We have parking problems at Tokwa and at Tugaloo. This is a problem we have today that current and future property owners inherited because the original developer opted to sell prime properties rather than reserve these properties for future expansion, knowing that a future date of build-out would occur. We are facing and will continue to face this problem and the very expensive solutions. Eliminate clear cutting of trees. Excuse me 1 second. Sip of water.
You're loud.
Thank you, Bruce. That means a lot coming from you.
Is that water or vodka?
It's water. Oh, I just got it. That was funny. Eliminate clear cutting of trees. How does one explain clear cutting? The term has been applied to removal of trees for homes. Now, this is in next door letters, posts, emails, and personal contacts. The term has been applied to removal of trees for homes, right-of-way trimming, easement trimming, and facility expansion. Understanding the term clear cutting is used, the first home built in Tellico Village over 35 years ago was constructed on clear-cut land. Each of our properties were reviewed by the ACC with a specific goal of maintaining the aesthetic value of Tellico Village. Each of us chose to move here based on that historical aesthetic value. Members of the ACC and this board are property owners with a vested interest in Tellico Village. Properties will continue to be cleared within the guidelines of the ACC in order to enhance the aesthetics of Tellico Village, as well as property values for all current and future property owners. We can add, oh, I didn't say next, I'm sorry. Possible solutions continued. Research was done regarding providing security services to Tougaloo. Private security firms were contacted, as well as the Loudoun County Sheriff's Department. Private security firms for this type coverage, which is comparable to non-single day activities such as church services, ours would be 7 days a week, require a long-term contract commitment. We, the property owners, will be paying for a service to have a guard on site 365 days a year. We continue to research other options and other security service providers. Security gate. Next. Thank you. You're doing good. I'm falling behind. Research was done on the pricing and operation of a security gate. The installation of a security gate must include elimination of bypassing the gate. So included in the pricing is a construction addition of barriers that would prevent driving around the security gate and a turnaround for those stopped at the gate but not admitted. The estimated price, and no formal bids have been requested to date, is approximately $25,000. That includes the gate, bypass barrier, and turnaround. Now that we have the possible solutions, we move on to the implementation of those solutions. Next, please. Private security, which would involve smoking, profanity, trash, disruptive behavior, loudness, and duplicated smoking, unauthorized users. This will require constant oversight of Tougaloo users. Violators must be caught in the act. Do we ask those not complying to leave? And does this include property owners? We would be required with a security service to check and verify all IDs, verify bank and phishing IDs, and that would still leave us with potential issues regarding the 820 line. Next, please. Security access gate. With a lift arm security gate, this would require a barrier to prevent a drive around. Again, total estimated cost at $25K. The suggestions would be to have an access method of a keypad, auto barcode, etc., but only a card reader would solve the problem of identifying unknown users. In other words, you would have to have a beach ID verification so that if I didn't know who you were and I challenged you for being there, I could show you a card. With a card reader or a car ID reader, you could not have that verification. And again, I know this number's high and not everybody would be using this feature, but we have 85 potential users. Our offices are closed Saturday and Sunday. We would require staffing on off days for lost cards, sudden family members want to go to Tugaloo Beach and you'd need a card to get in. Next, we also would have out-of-service problems, the biggest being no entrance or exit while out of service, which would require immediate response staffing. Then we have training to prevent tailgate entrance follow-through when the arm is raised, and to prevent slip-through entrance on the exit when the arm is raised. And the gate would not eliminate smoking, trash, profanity, disruptive behavior, or loudness, which are behavior and common courtesy issues. Next. That's it. The members of Rover Run Dog Park invested a great deal of time studying the Tugaloo site, their goal being to retain a Tellico Parkway buffer, which was to their benefit, retained as many trees for shade as possible, cleared the undergrowth and replaced that with grass, add fencing for containment, add seeding, irrigation, and power. The majority of what you see as bare earth today was actually dense undergrowth. Rover Run will be a park-like asset to Tellico Village when completed. But an issue brought forth was the gates leading to Dock and Rover Run are in place, with the point being made to add additional gates on the street. Both the docks and Rover Run are supported financially by their users, as we spoke to the dock captains today and their income and reserves. The docks for security and Rover Run for member use and animal health, with health certifications required for Rover Run membership. There were questions regarding why do we have a sign. The sign designates the areas belonging to Tellico Village property owners. In the event authorities will be required to intervene in the most extreme cases, we have a sign that law enforcement can reference when the offending user is asked to leave. Next. Recommendations. The issues regarding Tugaloo service each year during late spring and early summer. This year, 2 additional factors added to the problem. The public beach at Lenore City is closed, which reduces but not eliminates beach access for the surrounding community. And then there was COVID-19, or I should not say was, I said then there is COVID-19, which during the shutdown, remember that part, of businesses in the area contributed to the increase in local people's free time because many were laid off, with other activities and area amenities shut down as well. Our beach saw an increase in outsider use due to these 2 additional factors. Plus, it was a nice time of year. Tellico Village is a 35-plus-year-old community. Posts on Nextdoor have addressed and insinuated that the issues at Tugaloo are affecting the decisions of people to move to Tellico Village or remain in Tellico Village. While this may be true, and I can't verify because I have not spoken to those individuals, the fact is that Tellico Village has set records for homes being built and existing home sales for the past 3 years and continues through today. Time on market and price per square foot has also seen record results with respect to individual property owner values. To verify, you can reference Nextdoor posts regarding the number of homes being built and control of population increases. Next, each of us, and I rarely get to use this number, but each of us, 100% of all property owners chose to move to Tellico Village. 100% of us made a life choice when we decided to pack our belongings from our prior residence and move here. There are no exceptions. There's something that made each of us choose Tellico Village. But deeper than that, we chose the state of Tennessee, the region of East Tennessee, the counties of Loudoun and Monroe, and finally we chose Tellico Village itself. The reality of our choice is that if we'd seen Tellico Village after driving through industrial parks, distribution centers, and junkyards, most of us never would have seen the entrance to Tellico Village. Next. Speaking from personal experience and having spoken to hundreds of Tellico villagers through the years, we all searched for this place in one form or another. We all found houses, and we found streets and various degrees of amenities. Alice, my wife, and I casually searched for about 5 years prior to buying property in Tellico Village. But being perfectly frank, Tellico Village was no different than many other retirement communities we visited. Sure, there are varying amenities and varying assessment fees, but we're looking for something else, and without really knowing what we were looking for, we found Tellico Village. What we found here and what thousands of other Tellico villagers have found here is something special. Something unlike what Alice and I have ever experienced, having lived and worked in Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, Maryland. In each of these cities we lived, we found without realizing that our lives and friends were based on where our kids went to school, the neighborhoods in which we lived, where we shopped, our job status, even the kind of car we drove. And purely by chance on our first visit to Tellico Village, I played golf at Toqua. I was paired with a man named Bob, who still lives here today. I hope he's listening because he knows who he is. And his 3 friends, and in jest, they were Yankees, because I was originally from Greenville, Mississippi, so I thought they were Yankees, and they were from Michigan. And after the first 3 holes, I came to realize this place, Tellico Village, was special. Bob and his friends didn't care what kind of golf clubs I played, what type of golf apparel I wore, where I was from, where I went to school, or what size house I wanted to live in. Bob and his friends met me and included me without reservation. In our continued searching in Tellico Village, Alice and I found this behavior over and over, and to this day, I continue to hear this type of introduction to Tellico Village. People have been offered houses to stay in while searching for a home, boat rides and loaning of boats, inclusion in golf and game groups, personal tours, invitation to meals and other group activities. A truly amazing place to live in which I and many of you feel blessed to be a part. Recommendations continued. As a resident, I have my wants and needs. As a resident, I have my wants and needs. As a resident, I want everything to be free. But as a representative of all property owners in the role of board member, I realize that somehow all this slice of heaven must be paid for. And as a resident, I pay for all this, but also as a resident, I've come to realize that the majority of us property owners making up Tellico Village are an inclusive community. Next. We've come to realize that our inclusive attitudes are an asset to Tellico Village. And as a board member and resident, I've come to realize that many of the issues and problems that we face each day in our respective counties, Loudoun and Monroe, are a result of our being perceived as an exclusive community. Even though our residents volunteer thousands of hours each year outside Tellico Village, and even though we spend our retirement dollars supporting local businesses, we're perceived by many in the local community as outsiders. And in talking with hundreds of villagers over the years, we don't like this perceived designation. And in the grand scheme, you're getting pretty good at this. In the grand scheme of Tellico Village, Tougaloo is a small part. The docks are funded by those that lease slips. The kayak and paddleboard storage is funded by the rec department and recreation membership. Dog park is self-funded. The remaining funds go to the pavilion, beach, and restrooms paid through assessment fees, a small amount in the overall cost of Tellico Village. Addressing the correspondence regarding dog park access being limited to dog park users as related to a security gate, the access to docks, again, is also limited by key access, both being paid through user fees. Next, please. My deepest concern on adding a security guard and/or gate to Tougaloo is the message of exclusion that we're sending to the community. Above and beyond the cost to install and maintain, above and beyond the cost to deal with ID card distribution and maintenance costs and emergency lock-in and lockout problems, and the potential issues of dispute resolution with respect to security issues, I have a concern. Next. Neither I nor anyone in my family has used these beaches for our 13-year residency has had a problem at Tougaloo. Our grandchildren always request multiple visits to the beach. Indeed, we have witnessed outsiders using Tougaloo. We have witnessed trash and smoking and various language issues. but all have been resolved on the spot using the Tellico Village inclusive attitude. And as an example, I ask, may I help you clean this up? And every time the answer generates the response, thank you, we can do it ourselves. Next. The request for privacy has been called for due to behavior issues, not picking up trash, smoking language, etc. The same behavior issues occur on the golf courses, pickleball and tennis courts, and even in our restaurants. And today at lunch, I shared with Carla Johnson, fellow board member, a group of photos that I have of cigarette butts and pieces of trash. And the first thing she says was, that's on Tugaloo. No, it was Sand Trap at Tokwa. So it's out there, and you will see the complaints, and there was a recent one on next door. But this type behavior goes on. These are common courtesy behaviors that, when addressed in a manner of inclusive civility, are corrected. I'm not so naive to think not in 100% of the cases. Thus, you put up a sign. Next. As a resident and board member, I have a concern sending the message to the community that we, Tellico Village, do not want you to interact with us. We'll volunteer our time and resources, but do not want you in our community. Note the community responses that you've seen on Nextdoor, where this has been put out to the area community. I firmly believe that the special inclusive relationship we have with one another in Tellico Village can be extended to our neighboring communities, particularly when a community beach is under construction and our neighbor community families continue to feel the impact of job loss. With that, I bet you'll never ask me to give another presentation.
Oh, geez, I'm used to you.
But with that,
Thus speaketh the Right Reverend White.
that finishes the presentation, and to the board, after he finishes talking. Okay, you're done? All right. I'll make a motion that we make no changes to the current operation at Tugaloo.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second, so the floor is open for discussion.
Do we have comments from outside?
All right,
Steve.
Rick.
Okay, Steve, I hear you. I can't see you.
Okay. Yeah, I think before we take any kind of a vote, we need to have significant input from property owners. But on the flip side, there's been a lot of writing on Nextdoor about the issues of outsiders and the trash, etc. But we don't have any actual data that tells us how many property owners versus outsiders actually have gone to the beach. I'm wondering if, Winston, you couldn't hire some temporary folks for, let's say, 2 weeks. You put them at the entrance and you sign them in and you ask name and address and determine if they're property owners or not. So at the end of 2 weeks, two things will happen. We'll have data that shows how big a problem this is, if it is at all. And number two, it'll send a message to folks in the outside community that those 13 rules we have on the board of acceptable behavior is being enforced. So I'd like to have a chance of collecting some data as to who's actually using that facility and who are property owners or who not, so we can define the problem.
Okay.
Not understanding all of this Robert's rule of law and all this stuff like you do, but that's not what this motion is about. I think that we have a motion on the floor, we have a second, we have a discussion on what the motion is, and if someone then wants to vote this motion down, they say no, we vote it down, then there should be another motion to go make a study.
Fair enough.
My point.
But we're asking for discussion at this point.
Sure.
Exactly.
We're not changing.
Exactly.
We're not changing your motion. So.
Thank you then.
We have a comment online that says this is from Tammy Tabor Smith. This is not an adequate response to this issue. The fact that residents cannot adequately social distance with the use of non-residents and the disrespect of our facilities.
Okay.
Are there any other board members that have comments?
I'm sorry, this is from Tammy Tabor Smith. She says this is not an adequate response to this issue. The fact that residents cannot adequately social distance with the use of non-residents and the disrespect of our facilities. Teresa Young says, I don't, okay, yes.
So this was regarding, and excuse me to the person writing this if I heard this incorrectly, but I don't think the issue is non-resident social distancing and resident social distancing. It is social distancing. So again, putting up a security gate is going to keep somebody out, but behavior is social distancing, is the point I'm making here.
Okay. You said there was another comment?
Yes, Teresa Young just says, I don't agree with your decision, and then later she says, what if you charge a fee for non-residents? Pat and I actually discussed that.
Well, and I say hi,
Teresa.
Teresa, good to hear from you.
Well, we haven't made a decision
No,
yet.
not yet.
but- Yeah, so.
Not yet. Well-
When this started to boil up about 3 weeks ago, I started to go to Tugaloo every day, 2 to 3 times a day. And only one day did I ever notice a parking problem. And in only one day did I ever notice that the beach was so crowded that you could not distance on the beach. That day was the 4th of July, which would, by the way, be the same problem that we'll see in all of our marina parking lots on a major holiday. Most of the time, I would tell you that that parking lot was over half empty. So, you know, I don't think it's a parking issue. I don't know that it's an issue of the beach is so crowded we can't even get on it. I will tell you, I did notice on 2 occasions when I was there that boats were pulled up to the, you know, the swimming area and they were using the beach. No way to prevent that.
Right.
You know, I guess we could build a great big barrier across the cove. Yeah, but,
A bubble?
so, you know, I'm not sure what we're responding to.
I can, yes. Alicia Denny says, we are there 3 times a week and have had no problem social distancing. George Arwood says, this seems to be a lot of words that is missing the point of maintaining the area. Maintenance.
Yeah, I'll comment. Maintenance is key, and I understand. I read some posts yesterday and early this morning about the geese, the Canadian geese on there. And being a boater and a golfer, when I filled up Alice's wave runner the other day at the yacht club, the lady that was docking hers on the south side of the gas dock could hardly get off between the goose dew to walk back to her car. It was absolutely horrible. Go to any lake green on the golf course and it's just gross. It is this time of year a constant process, and what we do, challenge Winston. I know Simon was involved. He's going to get in there with asking Jeff for additional cleaning hours, and I have not seen the result of that. But again, the beach has got the kids on it, it's got the use on it, a high use area, and perhaps that's one of the things we do. But there are constant maintenance issues, and to report that on Nextdoor, you're lucky if I'm not in Alabama visiting a grandkid, or Marty's in Ohio, or you've got your family in, or Bruce is fighting a fire. The best thing to do is to call the POA. The Nextdoor is not getting it done.
I know that I saw something from Jeff Gagley that suggested they were looking at some means. It seems like in the neighborhood where I live, several of the people who live along the water have installed these little stakes with ropes or twine or wire between them. For some reason, the geese won't cross them.
Yeah,
Not that they couldn't fly over, but they just won't cross them, so
because
they
they
don't come
won't-
up in their yard.
And the golf courses do that too, because they won't land on the water. They won't land on the land, they land on the water. Then they walk
Walk.
up. But put that on a beach with a child walking from the beach to the water, you have a different
But
issue.
I don't think that's where the problem is, because like I said, I've been there several times in the past few
Here we
weeks, and
go.
where the geese come up is not where the sand is
Okay, I'm
on
going
the
to bring
water.
this
It's on the
conversation
side.
back to what the topic is.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about geese. You know, that's another topic, and we can talk about that anytime we want. We're talking about what we should do at Tugaloo.
Talking maintenance.
Well,
Gators
that was
security.
part
That's
of
it.
the
It's what
issue
are
at
the
Tugaloo
issues?
was
Gate or
the mess from the
security guard.
geese.
Well, number one, putting a security guard there, that's an expense that I don't think we can, cover. We've talked to the Loudoun County Sheriff's Department, and they frankly won't help us unless we call in and make a complaint on a particular incident. So, security guard police is not a viable option. Loudoun County Sheriff's Office has basically said we don't have the resources to police your beach. So, the gate is a $25,000 project. We will have to build a block wall, which will actually not be very attractive and will detract from the appearance of the area. We will have to put in a turnaround, which probably will require us to cut down some trees, which will obviously upset some people. So we're on the horns of a dilemma here.
Well, I go back to what Pat said in this inclusivity. I think that if we put up a gate, we're still going to have the maintenance problems that are out there. And we're still going to have a security issue because and we're going to have a neighborhood problem because people are going to try to park on 444. They're going to park in our neighborhoods and walk over there. So I think what we've got to do is figure out the issue of maintaining, how we maintain it, and how we maintain it to the standards that people want. If it could wind up being a sizable expense, then we'll have to measure the expense against, well, should we just close the beach down if we can't afford it? So I think we really need to key on, look at and focus on maintain it, and we also have to figure out a way, just like in our neighborhoods now, when we have people that do things that they're not supposed to do according to Blue Book, we self-police. Pat just pointed out that if you speak to the people doing these things, after a while, generally most of those, if they want to use it with us, they're gonna maintain just like we expect them to. So I think we got to get away from the securing the thing and focus on how we're going to maintain this.
Okay?
We have some more comments from the internet. George Arwood says, it is a cleanliness issue, number one. Can't we maintain the area?
Okay.
Harry Rucker says this appears to be ramming a decision through. I believe that the vote should be tabled until residents can digest the board's position. And then he goes on to
Well,
say,
the
what
board
is
doesn't have
a
a
1 month
position
delay?
yet.
I understand. Cap Purvis says a new piece of equipment to clean the beach sand has been approved by the Finance Committee.
Well, and it was
It was
approved by the
also
board
approved
at the
by the
last
board.
meeting.
Ann Greavy says Tugaloo Beach is an amenity for TV residents and guests, not the outside community. Is the wellness center usage available for the community? No, it isn't. Why should Tugaloo be available for them?
But on the other hand, I could say also, all of our restaurants are our amenities that we pay for too, but
So
we
are
open
golf
those
courses.
up. So are golf courses.
JP Ezel says, is there another location where we could add a second beach area?
And then you have the same
Well,
problem.
we haven't heard from you yet, so go for it.
Yeah, no, I disagree that this is a TVPOA beach only. It is. We need to be inclusive. And yeah, we need to figure out though how we keep the beach clean and just some simple rules of courtesy that you were talking about that need to be employed, so.
Mr. Arwood says this will go away in the fall. Can't we maintain this with periodic cleanups? We don't need this overkill type of thinking. Maintain for the summer months.
Well, that's, Bruce,
Yeah.
what you were suggesting.
Yeah,
We gotta focus on maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. Focus on keeping it clean.
So basically, I always love this part. Winston, you need to figure out how to keep that beach area clean. You know, I don't, is there any other discussion of this? We have a motion and a second, so.
What is the motion? So give me your motion
The
again.
motion is to leave it exactly the way it is today.
Well, that's a pretty
No,
broad
and
motion.
this is regarding security.
Security and a gate.
Policing and a gate,
Okay.
right? Now, managing, operation, maintenance, I
Well,
agree.
that's ongoing stuff.
And during this time of the year, when the geese fly through, or they mate, or they decide they're gonna relieve themselves, I mean, they may think we're a service station. I don't know. Maybe we're a pilot or a,
Okay, got it. So,
Yeah, we're done with the geese.
so at that time of year, we track this, then we should be budgeting and planning and staffing
Right.
at this time of year next year. And in the fall, if it becomes leaves, then we see what that is. But we can adjust to these things.
Okay.
but
so-
I think in order to, so that the community understands that we understand and we know that there's issues there. And so how are we going to address it? So number one, the motion at hand is, no, we're not gonna advocate putting up a security gate or trying to hire a security person. So-
That's the motion on the floor.
However, we are going to do our due diligence to keep Tugaloo Beach clean, and that's the directive that we're giving the staff.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what we need to communicate.
But that wasn't part of the motion, but that's.
No,
But
but
that's the
we need
gist
to
of the motion.
communicate that, though, that this is our action item.
I would like to ask a question about smoking. I talked to Mitzi about this earlier. I know it's an outdoor area and people are smoking. However, the question that was sent to us via email was, can we have a designated smoking area, which hopefully would then maybe encourage people to smoke there and not everywhere, especially since so many children are around and people are trying to enjoy. I believe this person was a swimmer and she was,
Right.
Just for the reasons of trying to swim and breathe and all that kind of
So-
stuff,
so
the smoking was a
if-
problem.
If I can, let's separate that.
Okay.
And we'll do a
Make that a
second
separate
motion.
motion? Okay.
Because I know where you're going.
Okay.
So I'm going to offer an amendment to your motion, Pat, is that we leave the security arrangements at Tugaloo as they stand today,
Which are none.
which are none. No gate, no security.
I
guard.
accept that amendment.
Okay. And who was the second? I've forgotten. Do you accept that?
Who seconded, I think?
So I'm gonna
Did you
call
second
for,
Pat's motion?
if there's no other conversation, I'm gonna call for a vote on that motion.
We do have some more online. Do you want
Okay.
to shut that down or you want to hear? Okay.
No,
Let's
no.
hear it.
All right, so one of them just said, there are many more people interested in this issue who abandoned the meeting due to internet issues because it's now more than 2.5 hours after the start time.
We realized that.
Another one says, I took vacation time to attend the meeting, tuned out after 35 minutes of no connection. Why are you voting when many of us who are concerned tuned out? I don't even know what's been said.
Well, then let's table it and do it again in 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm perfectly happy to do that. Do I have a motion to table?
I make a motion to table.
You can't
Second.
table your own motion.
I make a motion to table.
And-
No, but we need to do something because 2 weeks from now, we're gonna have the same issues. I know you're saying you're getting the internet cable and all that improved, but
No,
2 weeks.
and after this, we're going to entertain another motion.
Okay.
But
Well, we
she's
need to,
tabling my motion.
you're
because I
tabling it
agree.
because you're gonna do it 2 weeks from now again.
Well, I would only suggest that by tabling this motion, we've just pushed it farther into the future. Summer's approaching its end.
Well, I understand that, but if
But
you're ever
the
gonna
issue-
take a vote, these people have a point. These people have a point, and that is, if you're ever gonna take a vote, you can't do it when we can't register our. So
Exactly.
I'm saying you gotta say, here's the time frame. 3 weeks from now, if you got a complaint or a bullet or whatever, put it in writing and send it to us, because after 3 weeks, we're closing it and we're gonna vote.
Well, wait a second.
weeks.
I've got direct input on this, is that we have sat in this meeting with this issue and all the other issues that have been on next door. You have called for other at the end of every meeting for the last 2 months.
And
At the end of every single one of those meetings, I say, I have something else. Are you sure? And then you say, okay, is anybody going to say anything? And nobody ever says a word. Here's my point. If you say, give it to me in a week or two,
Well, we didn't get a second.
then I'm not going to get it.
There'd be no
It's very possible I'll never hear from these people. And I need to hear from them. And the suggestion repeatedly from Carla reading these is I cannot hear, I cannot participate, I didn't know what was said, and I want to.
Okay,
So
there
you're-
is a motion to table. Is there a second to the tabling motion? And the motion fails.
I'll second it.
You second. So, there is no debate on a tabling motion. So I will call for an immediate vote on the motion to table till the next meeting.
Can
All in favor?
Table it to the next meeting.
There's 5.
That's all you need. Steve?
Marty?
I'm a no.
You're a no. So it's 5-1 in favor of tabling.
So that technically means I'm giving this again in August.
2 weeks.
You're giving a vastly abbreviated version.
No, I'm not.
Give us the Cliff Notes.
Yeah. Okay,
Can
now
we
Carla,
communi-
you had another issue that I think merits some conversation.
Okay, and before I talk about that, I'd like to suggest that we communicate to give us feedback before the August 5th meeting so that we can
Right.
consider that in our decision.
So where do we want that feedback to go?
We'll have a form on the website that we'll send out, and I think we'll need to clarify, there's 3 different Tugaloo. You know, each post gets hijacked about something else. It started as security, then the smoking, and then now it's maintenance and cleanliness. So we
Right.
need to make sure that we keep those kind of separate.
Okay. So Carla,
So what I
we're
was.
going to be here at 6 o'clock tonight.
What I was bringing up was that we have had several people just suggest, which I think is a good one, that we actually have a designated smoking area at Tugaloo to encourage people not to smoke everywhere. So
So
I
would
don't
that
know what-
include saying no smoking on the beach or in the pavilion?
I would recommend that.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to create a designated smoking area, which includes no smoking on the beach or in the pavilion.
Is there a second to that motion? We've got a second. Discussion.
Yeah.
How do you enforce it?
Exactly. Number one. The second one would be is where you gonna put it, and the reason why is because I saw a conversation on Nextdoor last night that said, right now, they can smoke at the restaurant, but it has to be out on veranda. Some people say, I don't like it on veranda because I want to sit out there and I smell smoke. So where are you gonna put these people to where the point where they don't smell the smoke?
Well, while we're talking about smoking on the veranda at the restaurant, that shouldn't be allowed because it's too close to the doors of the restaurant. So it doesn't,
I have
it doesn't
I have a
really comply.
request. I have a request, and I've never done this before, but since I'm a fan of Nextdoor, you saw the slide, or you can Google Tugaloo area, and you will see where the turn is coming off of Tellico Parkway, and you'll see where the parking lot is, and some of the old Google Maps will still show trees. Some of the newer ones show where the grass is going to be for the dog park. I'm requesting from everybody that's listening to get on Nextdoor and give me suggestions on where you would put the smoking area. Because you've got docks on one side, you got dog parks across the street, you got restrooms on the southwest, and then you have the beach and the pavilion on the southwest. And then you have a playground. So where is the smoking area going to be? Please tell me, and it won't be a poll, just get on there and make a comment. Huh?
Yeah, not next door. We have our own communication facility.
Yeah.
There's going to
Telegram.
be a
Okay.
contact form on the
Then-
website,
then
which we
figure
will
out a
share
way.
for feedback.
So,
Wait.
Pat, are you suggesting we table this conversation as well?
Sure, till we figure out a way
Okay,
to,
so do you move to table?
yes.
Do I have a second? We have a second. There is no debate on a tabling motion. All in favor?
Table it.
There's 5. Steve?
I would,
Yep.
Okay, there's 6-0 to table.
I want to make sure that everybody heard Beth say that there will be a submission form on the website for your feedback for both of these issues regarding Tugaloo, for
Right.
security
Okay.
and for smoking.
Very good.
We also have some other comments from the public. Do you want to hear them now, or do you want to ask them to submit them
hear
via the website
No.
for the next
Hear 'em
discussion?
now.
We'll hear
And
him
then
now.
Hear
but
them
Now.
now.
We really need to move on.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
These are just suggestions. Number one, we can take this into consideration when we talk about this again. Why don't we benchmark other communities who have closed beaches like Cape May, New Jersey? Teresa Young says, yes, golf and restaurants are open to the public, but they have fees. Tellico Village residents pay for the beach, so others should pay a fee. Ann Greavy says, I agree with Tammy Smith. Also, she suggested a meeting just for this issue. So Ann agrees with that. Also, you indicated the community uses the restaurants, yes, but they pay for their food. It's not free. Mr. DPS says, secondhand smoke has been proven to be a significant health hazard for those exposed. No smoking except for a potential designated smoking area should be one. Sorry, I scrolled and I lost it.
One rule of the beach.
Thank you.
Okay.
One rule, and ask for their compliance.
Okay. Any others?
Do you want, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The same Mr. DPS says, then make it non-smoking, period. They can smoke in their car, and I'm sure that was in reaction to, well, where do we put the designated smoking area? Nora Shake says we don't have any control of the beach as it is TVA property. However, just a quick comment to that is TVA tells everybody who emails them about it that Tellico Village does manage that beach.
Exactly.
So we can manage it. Lisa Nickerson says smoking must be 20 feet from the beach and water. Smoke travels 20 feet and has 4,000 chemicals and 400 carcinogens. Smoke in your car with the windows up.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to encourage all the people that are listening, including those last comments, when we set up, when Beth sets up the, way to get those things to us, send them to her. So with that, we have to move on.
So, Rick, before
Thank you
do,
to everybody
Marty,
that commented and listened in. Thank you very much.
Might want to ask them how they're.
Rick, can you hear me?
Well, okay, I will say, Bruce just said, and you may not have been able to hear him because he didn't speak into his microphone, but he said you may want to ask them how they intend to enforce this. And Mr. DPS actually said something important. He said, the same way we enforce the other rules, we rely on people following the rules. For those who don't, we point out the rule and ask for their compliance. And we have had that situation happen in different things like social distancing and other things. And typically, as Pat pointed out earlier, when you do point it out and ask them to comply, sometimes they get a little crabby about it, but they typically comply.
Okay. Kevin, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I will try to be very brief and go through this with enough detail to give you a flavor of the month, but not go on too long. If I were to summarize the month of June, it was very consistent with the months of April and May, with kind of two exceptions. One is the rec revenue. Obviously, we started billing, and I'll talk about the rec membership a little bit later. And the HA5, I accrued $639,000, or roughly 75% of what Jeff Gagley anticipated to be the final bill for the HA5 application. So we'll pick up part of that. That's been a variance since it was budgeted earlier in the year. And then Jeff, obviously that project is wrapping up in the month of July, so I'll pick up the final accrual of that. So getting down to non-financial indicators, the assessed lots are pretty much right where we're at. POA lots sold, for the month we sold 9 lots versus a budget of 4. So year to date we're 29 favorable, which is a good trend. Another positive trend is suspended accounts. We continue to run favorable on suspended accounts, and you'll see the impact of that in late fee revenue as well as bad debt expense. So our total paying lots are basically right on budget. Our head count continues to be a little bit favorable. I know Chris Carter and folks have been working hard to fill positions. That's going to fluctuate when we go into July and now into August soon, as a lot of seasonal folks are going back to school. Some of those open positions will continue. On Public Works with property transfers, we continue to see a lot of activity in the village in property transfers. Year to date, we're 160 transfers favorable. New home permits, they've had 15. I know this month continues to be strong. Miscellaneous permits are also right at budget. We're a little bit unfavorable year to date, but I am confident that'll pick up. Tank installations are also strong. We had 16 for the month versus a budget of 14, and we're 24 favorable year to date. Water and sewer usage, we're pretty much right. We've got a little bit of favorability on water purchasing, but on water revenue year to date, we've got higher water usage, and Clayton indicated that for July, we are going to have, with the heat and lack of rain, there's been a heavy amount of water usage even through 3 weeks of July. So I'm expecting that water usage to really climb up July, and hopefully we have some rain in August. Some good news as well is on the golf side. Chris Sykes and the folks in golf continue to have a very strong month. Daily and prepaid rounds, they had 1,600 favorable rounds for the month. Annual obviously continues to run strong, and guest rounds at 460 for the month favorable really brought the year-to-date amounts favorable over 7,000 rounds. And the two key things to note, daily and prepaid rounds year-to-date are up 938 rounds, and guest rounds are up 301 rounds. On the docks, the nice gentleman with the strong southern drawl from the Dock Advisory Committee indicated we're pretty much fully leased on the docks. At the time I put the stats together, we had 2 open slips, one on D dock and one on E, and I expect that Jessica Robb and the folks in admin have filled those 2. RV, the lease percentage, that statistic is very consistent with prior months. I'm going to be working with Mitzi Lane and with Clayton as they've both taken on the initiative to regrade the lots. The numerator, or I'm sorry, the denominator of that metric will change as the number of secured lot numbers change. So I'll update that for the board soon. The other thing to talk about, and you'll see a graph, is the precipitous drop in RUC memberships. For the month, we had a loss of 95 individual members and 164 family members. So year to date, it's not an issue, but when I get into the trend, you'll really see that. Next slide, please. So here overall, our revenue year to date is $10,656,000 versus a budget of $10,663,000. So we're only off by 7,000. I'll explain in the revenue detail a lot of puts and takes to get there, but very close on the top line. On the expense side, we're a little over 10 million in year-to-date expenses, which is favorable, $1.6 million over the year-to-date budget. So our net income year-to-date is $577,000. Now, if you take that number and adjust, I've got about $213,000 for HA5 work that, since Jeff is finishing it up in the month of July, I'll pick that up, which would get me down to favorability of $364,000. If you remember, that total HA5 in the budget was $977,000. So Parker and I were talking earlier, there's going to be some additional shoulder work and road maintenance tied to that whole project that I expect Jeff to be putting through. If I call that about $130,000, if you net all that year to date, we're only favorable on net income. or we have net income of about 230,000. So still a lot of good things in the P&L. I'll be thankful for the month of July to pass and have all of HA5's timing differences behind us. But overall, year to date, it's been good. Next slide, please, Shannon. So on the revenue detail, assessments obviously are right on. I talked about the late fees. We've got a little over a $200,000 hit on late fees, and that is driven by the lower delinquent accounts, and you'll see the offset in bad debt. Some really good news on golf revenue. Golf is favorable on the top line by $70,000. And golf merchandise, even though he's unfavorable year to date, $39,000, they had a very strong golf merchandise month for July of, for June of $51,000 for the month. Obviously, things like TrackMan, a lot of demos, they did a lot of sales with golf clubs. So obviously, it certainly helps on the top line. As you'll see when we get to golf merchandise cost of service, it hurts me a little bit as the golf clubs carry a little bit lower margin than normal apparel. Water and sewer, pretty much right on. Installed tanks, a lot of that is all driven by volume favorability. We talked about docks and RVs. I'm a little bit behind of 13,000 year to date for RV, which I think with the changes to the lots, that'll correct itself in the back half. I'm 10,000 unfavorable on docks. And again, that too is a year to date number, and we started with more open spots. And then 12,000 favorable on the gas dock. So those three kind of combined gets me to 10,000 unfavorable. And again, I'm not too concerned about that in the back half of the year. ACC permits, that activity continues to be strong, so that's all volume driven. And then really down in other, that 108,000 year-to-date variance is really driven by three main factors. One is the Kahiti donation for $59,350 that we received for the heaters. The property transfer fees, that volume favorability is $32,100. So we had 310 transfers year to date versus a budget of 150. The other $19,430 is really increased interest income as we've carried higher balances both in our operating account as well as the reserve accounts. Next slide, please. I can kind of go through this real quick. Basically, what I want to point out here is that purple spike is really the HA5. We'll continue to see that correct itself in June and July, which is really why the revenue, more of the expense is definitely above budget in those last 2 months. Next slide, please. So on the expense side, on maintenance, we're 802,000 favorable year to date. Like I mentioned, I accrued 75% of HA5. The remaining will be picked up in July. I've got some favorability in salary and benefits. Bad debt, that 166,000 is tied to the favorability in delinquencies. On the operating supplies, that favorability is a lot of kitchen equipment for 55,000. I've got some horticultural supplies for 31, and then some tables, chairs for pavilion of 30,000, and just a lot of mix of various things. I think a lot of that is going to be more timing difference. As I know, Mitzi's been working with Andy to figure out, now that we're kind of in this new normal with restaurant activity, what kind of equipment they need to replace and when. And obviously Chris with the horticultural supplies, with the warm weather, has actually helped on his application on the greens, et cetera, with the golf course and maintaining the turf. So, some of those will correct itself. The yacht club management fee, we're 40,000 unfavorable, And when you look at the trend of this chart or graph, you'll see for the month of June, the yacht club management fee subsidy was only $2,000, which is basically the utility portion that is in AWE's agreement. So Andy and everyone's been doing a great job, obviously, on that subsidy. The last, April and May were tough months for everyone in the restaurant business. So I know Andy's working hard to try to correct that in the back half of the year. Tank installation, cost of service is all tied to volume. And marketing, that unfavorability with Beth is mostly due to the timing of some large Tombras invoices related to, I think, web design, Beth, or marketing. So that'll also correct itself over the year. I talked about golf merchandise cost of service. They are favorable as overall sales are down, but I expected them to be a little bit more favorable. And again, it's that margin issue I talked about. The $226,000 favorability in other expenses is really a whole host of things. Some of it's $31,000 tied to timing of consulting fees. I've got about $45,000 related to timing of accounting and payroll fees, about $11,000 on computer services, and there's about $45,000 in there for timing of gains and loss on disposal of assets, which really gets booked when we sell POA lots. Jessica Johnson goes through that determination. So next slide, please. So here's just a trend of where we're at with net income. Obviously for the month, we had a loss of $265,000. So if I look at kind of that red line for the month of June, had us making money at $318. So if I take my 265 and I back out the $639,000 that I booked for HA5, brings us to a normalized month of $374,000, and again, a little bit better than what we had originally budgeted. So good news there. Next slide, please, Shannon. So this is the trend. I'll just go over a few key items in here. You'll see kind of midway down in the revenue, the golf merchandise for the month at $51,000, a very good trend as they open the pro shops back up. I know they have a lot of new merchandise, so please go in there and spend your money. Obviously for rec, we started back up on the billings. So for the month of June, Simon had revenue of $59,000. Now that is a little bit lower than what I would normally expect. Obviously for April and May, we had about $75,000 each month that we, foregone for kind of suspending billing. But when it started back up, it came in at a lower rate. And you'll see that chart in a couple seconds. And then on the expense side, everything has been, very consistent. And you'll see the anomaly in June for maintenance, where obviously we're picking up the HA5. Next slide, please, Shannon. I'll kind of go over this quickly, and you could peruse this at your leisure. Send me questions about the rate volume. It did come up in my FAC that this slide with rate volume tends to confuse a lot of people. So I'll be working with my advisory committee to kind of refresh these rate volumes in a way that they could easily communicate with some of the other villagers on really what's taking place with water and sewer. But basically, if you look at the bottom, there's a column for what accounts for a rate variance, what accounts for a volume variance, and then the total variance. So water and sewer individually, we've got both a rate and volume variance. On the sewer side, we've got a negative rate variance, but a positive volume variance, somewhat offsetting. And then on cost of service, the same issue. So again, I'll kind of work through that. Next slide, Shannon. This is just a walk, basically another way to kind of go through that rate volume but it's walking from water and sewer budget down to actuals. Obviously, there's a negative cost of sales on the water volume. That's something for me to take a look at. And then the other thing to note is on installed tanks in cost of sales, there's slightly lower tank revenue on a per tank basis than budget, and there's slightly higher install costs in cost of service for tanks than expected. And that is really just additional labor on some of the tank work where Jeff and his folks have had to bring in some outside help. That really throws him off from the average tank cost that we assume in the budget. He's aware of that issue and assures me that as the number of tank installations continues to rise, that'll regress back to a mean more in line with the budget. Next slide, please. So on the golf rounds, on this round sheet, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, all of the top 6 lines there for daily and prepaid, that whole variance equates to favorable 938 rounds. And for annual rounds and annual rounds after 2, that totals 5,919 favorable rounds. So again, a very, very strong golf month and year to date. Next slide, please. There's 301 favorable guest rounds, which is good to see. Obviously, the other thing that's good to see is it's not just Kahidi like it's been in the past. It's getting spread through some of the other courses. So, I think we're starting to see some outsiders take advantage of that. Next slide. So here's just the total. If you go to the bottom right for the punchline, year to date on a consolidated basis, we're favorable 7,157 rounds. And when you look at the rounds versus 2019, it's an even stronger growth. So not only is he knocking it out of the park relative to the budget, but year over year, the round activity is just phenomenal. So now if you go to the next slide, please, Shannon. Here's not a concerning part. Simon's aware of it. Obviously, he's doing things to take care of the rec membership, doing outdoor activities. He and I have already started having these conversations about what this looks like going into budget season and what he can do to kind of bring some of these numbers back. Obviously, before the virus, he was at an all-time membership high for family, which is what you see here, or I'm sorry, this is individual. But you'll see with the virus, it has just dropped tremendously. He dropped 44 in April, 52 in May, and then he's actually brought it up by 4 in the month of June. So I certainly hope to see that individual activity climb back up as he opens up more and more. Next slide. Same thing on the family side here, but I don't see the slight uptick in recovery in the memberships in June. It continued to fall down. So here he lost 80 in April, 52 in May, and then 52 in June. So obviously I think those family memberships are a little bit harder sell. And again, Simon is aware of this and addressing it with his advisory committee. So I hate to kind of go through that too quick, but if you guys have questions, I could turn it over to Parker for the CFO update.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
There was a question from Norris Shake on the recreation membership. He said, will those who paid their rec membership at the first of the year, I'm assuming he means for the year
The
annually,
annuals.
be refunded for the 2 months.
No, their deal was we were going to extend them 2 months.
Extended, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll try also to go through mine fairly quickly, given the hour of the day. Quick update on HA5. At the time I wrote this, the week before the Finance Committee meeting, work was nearing completion. Well, it is now indeed complete. And a quick update just as of about 15 minutes ago from Jeff Gagley. We do have the final invoice, which was $852,000. Now, there is still, as Kevin pointed out, probably $120,000, $130,000 worth of shoulder work and patching and that sort of thing to be done. But I think we'll come in fairly close to budget overall on that.
Does that cover 100% of the roads down Mille Lac or just part of them?
I don't know the answer to that. It was 3 neighborhoods, Coyote, Chattooga, and Mille Lac. I don't know whether it was the entire.
There's roads down there that haven't been done yet, so I just was wondering, what the.
Well, I understand.
Parker, we had to pull off of a couple of the other of the roads. There was the error in the GIS on telling us the width of the roads. So instead of running the budget way over budget, we pulled off some roads that didn't have any homes on them, and we're going to catch them first next year.
So you're doing Mille Lac within 2 years?
Yes. What few we didn't get, correct.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Okay. We are accumulating the payroll and expense data to file for forgiveness on the Paycheck Protection Program loan. Expect to file that by the end of this month, maybe early next month. We do think that we will meet the requirements for forgiveness of the loan, but we do not know how long the review and processing of that filing will take. So, and we've talked about that also earlier in the day. We're well on the way toward setting up the budget model for the development of the 2021 budget and the 22 to 31 10-year plan. I'll go over the draft schedule for budget development on the next slide. Finance Committee reviewed that on Friday, and it's in your board packets. I hope you've had a chance to take a look at that. And we've talked about this also, that the Wellness Center note will be, I need to say, will be mostly paid off in August. The August regular monthly payment will pay that off all but a few $100s. And so we've talked about having a note burning ceremony of some sort. Talking with Beth earlier today, we might actually push that into September and pay that final few $100s at the time of that ceremony. That might get us into a little bit cooler part of the fall, and might be also maybe the distancing rules will be relaxed a little bit. We'll see. So anyway, details of that to be forthcoming, but no matter what, the wellness note will be paid off very soon. Okay, budget calendar. Next slide, please. I know this is pretty small up on the screen. If you've got your hard copy in front of you or on your tablet, you maybe follow this a little bit more closely. I tried to schedule most of these, or at least many of these sessions, to coincide with regularly scheduled Finance Committee meetings or board meetings, so as to not get yet another meeting, to have to book on the calendar. But some exceptions to that, note that September 28th to October the 1st, that is the 3-day review, the traditional Finance Advisory Committee review of departmental budgets. So try for sure, if you possibly can, to make those 3 meetings Thursday if needed, but we usually do that in 3 days, Monday through Wednesday. Also note that October 26th and 27th, location is to be determined. I'm assuming it's probably going to be here, but that's a couple of days set aside for the board to review and make adjustments to the budget as needed. And then a couple of final passes and approval of the budget on November the 18th. One of the key steps in this that will take place or needs to take place very soon is board guidelines. And that is to be done, let's see. Yeah, August 14th and 19th. That would be at the next FAC and the second August board meeting. We need to discuss board guidelines. And I've already begun some preliminary work on that, but certainly need some board guidance as to other things that we need to take into account. So we'll have some more discussion offline on that between now and then. Okay, major capital project for your consideration. We talked about this in an earlier meeting and were asked to come back following some additional study by Mr. Gagley and the Public Service Advisory Committee and maybe the dock people. The project is to inspect the wave attenuators at the Yacht Club Basin and Tanasi Basin, both above water and underwater, for structural components and anchoring systems to quantify observed deterioration. The full budget for wave attenuator replacement, inspection and replacement, the full budget amount in this year is $220,000. This request is for $55,000 to be funded from the Dock Reserve Fund. Finance Advisory Committee recommended its approval. And these attenuators are believed to be in various stages of deterioration. The purpose of this project is to assess that condition and determine a recommended course of rehabilitation or replacement action. Pretty highly specialized work, potentially dangerous work. Not just everybody can do it. And so after evaluation of various proposals, Jacobs Engineering Group for $55,000 is recommended for the contract. So the request to this board is capital approval of $55,000 with funding from the Dock Reserve Fund.
Okay, I need a motion to approve $55,000 of capital funding.
Motion
from the
made.
Dock Reserve Fund for the Wave Attenuator Condition Assessment Project.
Motion made.
Second. Second. I have a motion and a second. Conversation.
Go. You gave me the last one.
I just had a quick question about, was that what we initially thought the inspection and assessment was going to cost, as far as the total budget being 220? Is the 55 what we expected to pay for the inspection and assessment, or is this going to put us needing to find more money?
Initially, it was lower than that because we were using barge.
It was about 48.
Yeah, it was actually, I think it was more like 40, but.
Could have been.
Yeah, this is higher.
Okay.
But the issue is, and you recall, there was an inspection, there were photographs taken, people did dive down and they looked at it. But there was no, and again, talking with PSAC and the Marine Advisory Committee, those folks have looked that over and said, we can't tell how structurally sound the bones of that thing are, and they're not willing to put their name on 48,000 to go down there and start fixing something that's going to break.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is saying, this is what we need, because if you don't, you've got a high probability of losing a lot of money if you start fixing something that's broke. So that's why I motioned.
That's great. I just wanted to make sure that when we get ready to replace it, we're probably going to have to come up with some more money, or potentially going to have to come up with some more money than what we budgeted.
It also may spread it out, though.
Okay.
Well, the answer to your thing is that 220 did not include a study.
No, it was the best guess, too.
Yeah, it did not include a study.
Yeah.
What the study came out of is that the PSAC and the Docks Committee, various people got involved, and they said, why don't you do this, why don't you do this, and so there were about 4 different unsolicited proposals that came in, but none of them would say that if you did this, you won't have
That's right.
you won't have a major problem.
Including fill up with rocks.
So, exactly. So what they decided to do is do a study and tell us what the real health of this thing is, so that we can see, do we need to maintain it, replace it, or whatever, so.
Okay, other discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes?
we from the last time that we met with the finance committee, they asked us to go back and look at our proposals, and we went back and looked at a couple of different avenues to go. One was to do the stone breakwater, and we had talked to TVA, and they had given us a preliminary nod that we could do that. So I engaged our surveying firm to go out and do some surveying for me to see how far out it's going to be and what the cost would be. And it come back just about double or more what our budget is. It's just cost prohibitive to do that.
Okay.
We have had a couple of issues in the last 2 months with the breakwater. So I think this is a timely thing to get done so that we can either get into it late this year or early in January in 21. But I think this is very timely. We did go back and look at our engineering that we talked to. Mr. Hawkey, who is the vice chair of the committee, went back and talked to the engineering firms, evaluated everybody's ability to do this type of work, and again recommended Jacobs to do the project. With the cost overrun, maybe we think even with the 55,000, the 220 is going to be good enough to keep us within budget, included in the 55. We think.
Did we solicit other bids besides Jacobs?
Well, you actually can't solicit engineering bids, but we did talk to other firms about their ability to do it.
State law.
About their ability to do it, and we felt that Jacobs was the best. We actually talked to Barge, and I forget who else he told me. I don't have the paperwork in front of him, but he did look at a couple of others.
Okay, thank you.
Can't compete.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Steve? Steve?
Hey, can you see me?
Can't see you.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good. Okay, it's 6-0.
What about Marty?
Hey, Rick,
No, Marty said
Rick.
yes.
Marty said yes.
Okay, it's
Can you,
7-0.
can you,
I can't
you know what?
really hear
Hey,
you,
Rick?
Marty. I'm sorry.
Rick, you can't hear me?
Okay, thank you.
You guys
And
can't hear me?
Just,
Yeah, we can hear you,
Barely.
Marty.
I can hear you just a little bit.
just a footnote.
Well, I've been trying to talk this whole meeting and nobody can hear me. Anyway, go ahead.
I can.
Now's your chance.
Yeah, but we can't go back.
Is somebody going to talk?
We're
Okay,
back offline again.
we done?
Internet
Okay,
just crashed.
just a footnote on this as we leave it. Thinking back on the discussion about the docks and the proposal for building new docks, this $220,000, it kind of crowds out for a year probably, the construction of new docks. Now, we'll look at that during the budget process and see if there's some other ways that we could finance that, but there will not be enough money out of the dock reserve.
You need to hold that thought until this guy comes back. He asked me to delay you in making any comments on that.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Okay,
And
yeah,
then
you
we can circle back around.
yeah, must be present to win. Okay, replace 20-year-old green fans with variable drive adjustable fans at Toqua. Budgeted for 10, coming in just shy of that. Finance Committee recommended approval. Single source due to technology. And actually, I don't think this one requires board approval since it's within budget and within the GM's approval authority. So I'll present this one for information and questions.
I'm good.
Okay, moving on.
Time out.
Glad to see it's quiet.
I had an important question that I forgot to ask on the wave attenuator, and it's fine that it's approved, but I still just want to ask the question. There's this daily standby fee of $4,500 due to weather, access, et cetera. Is that standard?
It's not unusual.
It is.
Because it sure wouldn't take long to blow that number out of the water, no pun intended.
Better wait
If
till
we
they're-
have bad weather.
That'll be Jeff's job to make sure they aren't standing by.
And make sure it doesn't rain. I mean, you're in charge of that, Jeff. You heard it.
Doesn't matter. so
I'm
much
on top
raining,
of it.
those big
I got
waves.
the umbrella.
Okay, So move on to the next one.
Okay, replace two older fairway mowers at Toqua, budgeted at $115,000, coming in right on the money. FAC recommended its approval. This is to replace mowers that have reached end of life and in need of replacement. Old units will be traded in and have been accounted for in the bids, as vendors will take trade-ins, about $8,000 for the two old units. You see the three bids there. The low bid is recommended. The request is to approve the purchase for $114,952, funding from unrestricted operating cash.
I need a motion to approve capital funding of $114,952 for the purchase of two fairway mowers for the Toqua Golf Course funded from operating cash.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Discussion.
Is the $8 going to go into the continuous improvement check?
Oh, my God. Possibly. Move on, move on.
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
you'll be killed later for that one.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay?
I'm voting.
Oh, all in favor?
And I accept my punishment of death.
Okay. Steve? Marty? Okay.
Yes.
It would be, Marty, are you there?
Yes, Marty's here.
Do you
Marty's
vote to
there.
approve?
He says yes.
Okay, so 7-0. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Enhance the existing TrackMan equipment experience with an impact screen and projector accessories. It's unbudgeted. The request amount is $5,000, funded from unrestricted operating cash. FAC recommended its approval. It is potentially a new revenue generator. And it enhances the TrackMan experience. I've actually used one of these at the Metaview facility in Kingsport, and it's really quite fun. So the quote is for the projector and impact screen for users to hit golf balls into simulated courses. Single source due to the technology required, and the request would be to approve $5,000 for purchase of this equipment from unrestricted operating cash.
And the board has to approve this?
No.
No, it's just for information.
Just for
Well,
information?
it's unbudgeted.
Oh, okay, fine. So the motion is to approve the unbudgeted purchase of accessories for the previously approved TrackMan Golf Simulator for $5,000 funded from operating cash. Got it. Motion, second.
Comments?
Comments?
I will just say, for the board, this is going to be on full display at the Lions Club Golf Tournament that's coming up shortly. They're going to put it on full display for everybody to see. So if you haven't seen it, you want to know what it is, just, you don't have to play in the tournament,
Okay.
drop by.
Other discussion?
Question.
Yes, go for it.
Now we've seen two pieces. Chris, how much more is coming so we could bag this all together?
That was my question.
That's going to get us there temporarily until we build a building. So, and all the stuff's been, we've taken the future building into consideration. So this is all portable, will all work in nicely to our future facility that's in the works. So we'll be able to have full simulator capacity with these additional items.
Okay, so this takes care of the first phase.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Steve?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
the
you.
next one, go.
Okay, replace failing security cameras at Kahidi Docks. New cameras have higher resolution for better security review. This was unbudgeted, hence the request to the board. $11,250 funded from unrestricted operating cash. FAC recommended its approval. The existing cameras are failing as they age and replacement system is needed. Quote is single source to be compatible with the rest of our existing system, and it includes labor for installation and testing by Knox Integrated Systems. I think this has actually already been been approved and purchased as approved by the CEO. So if the board, I don't know if the board needs to ratify this or not,
So-
but
so the
it was
motion is to-
approved as an emergency purchase.
The motion is to ratify the emergency unbudgeted purchase for $11,250 for the failing Kahidi dock security cameras previously approved by the CEO.
What's
Do I
the
have a
con-
motion?
That's complicated. How did
Yeah.
that happen?
We can't unspend the money.
Right.
You still got to ratify the purchase.
I move that we ratify.
Okay, second?
Okay, I'll second it. Now for discussion. Why am I ratifying a purchase?
Because it's unbudgeted.
Okay, so
If you didn't
there's,
ratify
there's,
it, what would
there's a,
happen?
there's a level of.
Probably
discretion-
nothing,
and-
it's
and
just
this
a formality.
Just for my education, there's a level of spending that you're allowed to make or whatever, and you can sign that, and then we've done that over and over. Parker comes in and says it's at the discretion of the general manager, he signs, and we go fine.
Well, it's just like the previous one where it was unbudgeted,
That's it.
so we had to approve it.
It's because it's unbudgeted, otherwise he
Okay,
would
but
approve it,
the
nothing been
previous
said.
one, we approved it, and then it's gonna be bought. This one has been bought, and
I
then we
understand.
approve it. That sounds,
It's just a formality.
no, but it sounds fishy to me.
Well,
And I don't mean that in a illegal
Okay.
way, but please
I would
Mr.
like
President,
to,
educate.
Mr. President,
Jeff is talking. Go ahead.
that actually has not been purchased yet because I didn't get to go ahead on it. I was waiting till I got approval for it, so it's not purchased.
Now I,
so now
I-
it's not a ratification, it's approval of a purchase.
yeah, now I
So-
understand.
Made it clear.
So are there operating cameras out there currently?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Okay, so I would only like to add and have this actually be into the minutes, and that is that this is another example of something that came up as an emergency. It was actually brought to the attention of Public Works and the board last September that we had a system out there that was not going to serve us for very long, and that was not Wi-Fi compatible, as well as some other issues. And it was not put on a schedule at that time. I feel like it should have been budgeted, is basically what I'm saying. And this is kind of like the wave attenuator. We keep having these surprises. And in this case, I suppose, even though it says that the single source bid is because of compatibility, I know that there are other sources who can provide equipment that's compatible with our systems, and I'm not even sure how important that is, considering this is a complete replacement of a system that works differently than the old one. My guess is that might be more likely out of necessity due to the emergency situation of failing cameras. But I think this could have been avoided, and I would like to see us really try to do a better job in the future of making sure that all of our assets are on these, maintenance, repair, and replacement schedules, so that we don't have these kinds of emergency requests as often as it seems like they're coming up.
Well, since it's not been purchased, I'd say this isn't an emergency request anymore.
Well, I was.
It's
gonna
just a request for approval
Mr.
of unbudgeted money.
President,
I had to withdraw my motion because it was a ratification. It's not a ratification anymore, it's approval.
You can amend your motion.
Mr. President,
But I have a comment back to, that's exactly why we're trying to do the preventive maintenance schedule, to get it going.
Yeah, well, we need to get it going.
We are getting it going.
Well, Bruce, can I ask you a question, since you're the PSAC liaison? Do we really think these camera systems are effective?
They have.
Is there
been-
better use for our POA money? Because we sink a ton of money. I don't remember the September transaction at all that you're talking about.
Well, we discussed.
So
it
I'm
during
going to
the
go
budget
back
cycle.
and look, but I just wonder if it's something PSAC should study before we sink any more money into this technology.
Well, the whole thing is that over the history of this thing is that we did put it down there for security reasons. We did not put in the system that was recommended because of the fact, what was recommended at the time, the board determined it was overkill But we do have cameras at all of our facilities to speak of, and they are compatible with each other because Jeff sits and watches these things all day long. But to the point, well, they're there in front of him, I'll put it that way. And we have been able to do security as a result of it. We have apprehended, the police have apprehended people, we've got restitutions and things of that nature. And so, as to how elaborate a system that we need, we have a system in there, it's been proven, we know who commits the crimes. The police in 5 years have not been able to apprehend him, even though he walks around freely in Madisonville, Tennessee. They just can't find him. Because when they go to his house to get him, he's not there. So, as to how effective it be, it's only effective for those people who are not trying to get away or get something on us. Like kids going by and knocking down mailboxes and things like that. We have caught them and brought them. So as to how much security we need, we do need security, obviously, because we have, just think, TV that we put out in front of the new Kahiti thing. We have cameras down there to keep people from just coming up and ripping that TV off. So we do need them. It's just how elaborate a system do we want? And the boards in the past have determined the system that we have is what we needed and wanted. So you can re-look at that to see if we want to go with a more elaborate system, but,
I just question the whole plan.
Well, are you
Mr.
suggesting that
President?
we don't need security at all in our buildings?
Cameras, no, security is a great thing, but
Steve?
cameras is not.
Steve, did you have something?
No, I did not. Well, I did. The question is, why not, if we're gonna do it, why isn't there a competitive bid? As I understand it, there was another bid out there that Carla had in hand that was ignored.
So where we are right now is the motion has been withdrawn.
Or I can amend it. We prove.
Well, hang on. I mean, there
Mr.
seems to be a
President?
bigger question here.
Okay.
And the bigger question is this the right security system?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Thank you. To answer Ms. Johnson's questions, and I didn't know she had another bid in hand, but the camera system we're getting maps with the software that we use to view and record everything else in its priority, whatever it is, and you're not able to put other camera systems on that. When we did our 2020 budget, at the time, we did not have the new TDS system out there to be able to do the better camera system. So when we backed away from doing that in 20, it was because there was, even if we did it, the camera system wouldn't operate as it should. And I don't never go against my boss, but I think the camera systems are beneficial. I think they have helped us in the past. I think the newer technology we have is very clear, very to the point, and they are operating more regularly than they used to in the past. We get them out, as Mr. Johnson said, I look at them daily, all day long. I look at them a couple of times a week at every camera system, make sure it's operating. The Kahiti guard shack, I look at it weekly. It has the ability to email me when there's a problem with the operating system. So, we're doing the best we can with all of our equipment. The equipment that's currently at Kahiti is not sufficient. There's not enough cameras, and the system is failing. We've kept it alive, now, but if it takes another hit, we're probably looking at $3,500 just to replace the DVR, and then we don't have the coverage we really need.
Okay, so I think that we need a motion to approve the unbudgeted purchase for $11,250 for replacement of the Kahiti dock security
I have
cameras.
another question. You said.
Well, hold it. Let's get the motion on the table, and then we can have discussion. Do I have that motion?
Sure.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Just,
Now, you said that somebody said it was compatible.
No, I just said that there are multiple sources who can provide compatible equipment.
Okay,
So
now
what
the
we're
question
having
is-
here is a,
I know, but the question is here is that single source
due to
for
compatibility.
existing system compatibility. So your person is saying that that's not correct.
Correct.
Okay, then before I vote, go find it. Have that person prove it.
I've got it, and I'll send you the quote.
I don't need it, they need it.
Well, I mean, I'll send it to everybody. But it doesn't matter. I'm not suggesting that we delay doing this. All I'm saying is that this, to me, is another example of something that it seems like we didn't plan properly. And so now we're being asked to, on an emergency basis, approve funds from a single source, which doesn't comply at all with our purchasing policy.
Okay, so that's my issue. So if we're not going to comply with purchasing policy, I will not vote yes for it ever.
okay. Other discussion?
I would
I'd
suggest
have to
that the
agree with
camera-
that, though. If we're outside the policy, then.
Don't vote for it.
We need
Absolutely
to,
not.
we need to stop immediately and.
Okay. Do I have a motion to table?
Motion made.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Table it.
Steve, are you out there still? Marty?
Yep.
Do you approve the motion to table?
Yes, I do.
And Marty?
Yes, sir.
7-0. Let's move on.
Okay.
I need a drink, guys.
Yes.
Coming down to the bitter end, this is the capital summary. We'll make an adjustment for that Kahiti security cameras, since that has been tabled, but doesn't really impact the overall all that much. The two major, the major project that was recommended and approved, the fairway mowers, had a very small favorable variance. Likewise, the Tokel Greens fan, small favorable variance. You know that the
Longest meeting I think I've ever had.
TrackMan accessories, that was unbudgeted, that's all unfavorable, and now we'll pull, at least for the time being, the Kahiti security system. So, all that in, we're in that $60,000 to $70,000 unfavorable variance to budget year to date. Still looking good. We'll go to the last slide here on cash flow, primarily because of the strong year-to-date favorable variance on net income. And that's going to change a little bit as we get all of the HA5 monies booked, but that's where we are as of this point.
Any questions for Parker?
I do need to make one last comment for the benefit of Mr. White, who was out of the room at the time, that if the wave attenuator, which we approved $55,000 for the evaluation today, if it indeed comes through and requires a total of $220,000, that would likely crowd out the dock reserve funding availability to pay for new docks. So that's for your benefit.
Okay, thank you, Parker. Carla wanted to, forego the Asian carp, except she has an announcement to make.
I do. The reason I'm postponing the Asian carp update is because we have invited Congressman Tim Burchett to come and give his update. And so he was not available today, but he is available for August 5th. So he will be here at the next meeting to give us that update. And I would also encourage you in the meantime to continue to check the TVPOA website for updates, and that's under the news tab in the Asian carp, and it still has all of the elected officials and government agencies that you can send letters to make sure that we keep this top of mind for them.
Okay, that brings us to other, and I have one. I got a question from a property owner recently who asked me to tell them what's going on with the Wellness Center roof. Now, I did inform him that I would do that in this meeting, and I also informed him as an attorney, I'm not going to say too much. So, yeah, and we stated this before, and that we stopped the project when we noticed defects in the installation. We later determined that the contractor and subcontractor were not performing in accordance with the contract specs. After trying to remedy the performance with the contractors, we made a claim against the surety bond. That claim is proceeding to mediation. If mediation does not resolve the issue, we will proceed to litigation, at which point we will petition the court to allow us to complete the project using a new contractor. That new contractor will be responsible for demolition of the current work and then the application of a new roof. With that, are there others? Yes.
I have one. Oops, let me pull this in here. And this one is personal. Carla contacted me a while ago and asked me if I would cover for her in the HOA presentation that was going to be at Tugaloo at 5 p.m. as the HOA orientation. And that, along with the New Villagers, is one of my favorite board things to do. You just get to talk until they say shut up and sit down. But
with you, that would have to happen quickly.
Yeah, I know. just like now. But I need, and then I missed it, and I'm not going to get into the details. It was totally my fault. I missed it. I got an email from Ken Litke the next day regarding something else, and at the last sentence he mentioned in there, "We missed you," and my knees went weak. I said, "Oh my God, I missed it yesterday at 5, and I didn't even remember." So again, I apologize to Ken, to the HOA, immediately when I found out, but I'm missing an apology to those HOA members that were there and missed me talking until you told me to shut up. So I apologize. I apologize to each of them. It is one of my most favorite events, and it still makes me queasy to think I missed it. I am sincerely sorry.
I'm sure that they will accept your apology, Pat, because it was sincerely made. Are there others? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Done.
Holy moly.
There you go. That one was a marathon.
Why don't you get rid of this? It's all different things.
It is. Look at the lake.
What?
Look at the lake.
Oh, I know. I've been watching.